The rain came down so hard it sounded like gravel pelting the windshield, and Maya Ellison leaned forward, squinting through the blur of water smearing across the glass. Her wipers slapped back and forth at full speed, but the storm was swallowing everything: streetlights, road lines, her exhaustion, until the world was nothing but darkness and rain. She was already 20 minutes past the end of her double shift, and her whole body ached from carrying trays, wiping counters, and smiling through pain that never seemed to matter to anyone. All she wanted was to get home, peel off her soaked sneakers, and breathe. Then she saw him. A shadow stumbled in front of her headlights, forcing her to slam on her brakes. Her heart jumped into her throat as the car fishtailed slightly before stopping. A man stood there, soaked to the bone, leaning heavily against a stalled sedan with its hazard lights blinking uselessly in the downpour. His shoulders trembled, and his hands fumbled with something, keys, maybe. But it was clear he wasn't getting that car anywhere tonight. Maya exhaled shakily and pulled her car off to the side. She hesitated for half a second. The storm was brutal. She was exhausted. She had nothing left to give. But then she saw the way the man hunched his back as the rain pounded against him, almost folding him in half, like he didn't have the strength to stay upright. She got out. The wind slapped her face with needles of cold rain, but she pushed forward until she was at his side. "Sir, are you okay?" she shouted over the storm. The man looked up at her, blinking through water pouring from his hair and eyebrows. He looked to be in his early 70s, maybe older, with a soft-lined face and a pale tremor in his jaw. "It just stopped," he said, voice shaking. "I don't know what happened, He coughed, stopping himself. His clothes clung to him as if he'd been standing there for an hour. Maya glanced at the car. It was old, the kind of model you didn't see much anymore, and its hood was slightly dented like someone had hit a pothole too hard. Smoke or steam drifted faintly in the air. She slipped her arm under his. "Come on," she said. "You can't stay out here. Let me get you somewhere warm." He resisted at first, mumbling something about not wanting to cause trouble, but Maya tightened her grip. "You're not causing trouble. You look like you're about to collapse. Please." He finally nodded. They moved slowly toward her car, each step splashing through shallow pools of water forming on the road. When she opened the passenger door, he sighed in relief at the blast of warm air. She settled him inside, turned up the heat, and handed him one of the 2 old towels she kept in the back seat for emergencies. He stared at her like he didn't understand why she was doing this. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Maya. Maya Ellison." He nodded slowly, as though committing her name to memory. "I'm Leonard. Leonard Hale." She gave him a small smile and drove carefully toward the nearest spot with shelter. A bus stop with a roof and a bench, not far from the diner where she worked. It wasn't perfect, but at least it wasn't open to the full force of the storm. They sat there for a few minutes with the heater blowing. Leonard rubbed his hands together to regain warmth. "You didn't have to stop," he whispered. She shrugged. "Wouldn't feel right driving past you in that storm." "Most people would've." "Maybe," she said. "But you shouldn't assume I'm most people." He chuckled weakly, and something about the small sound made her chest tighten. There was a gentleness in him, fragile but sincere. When he had enough warmth to stop shaking, Maya helped him out of the car and settled him under the shelter. A late-night shuttle passed this route sometimes. She wasn't sure when the next one would come, but at least he wouldn't freeze. "Do you need me to stay with you?" she asked. He shook his head. "You've already done more than enough." "Thank you, Maya." She gave him her extra coat. "Just until help comes." He looked stunned, like no one had handed him something without expecting anything in return in a long time. She waved off his attempt to refuse it and jogged back to her car before the storm grew even worse. Her clothes were soaked through. Her hands were numb. She was exhausted beyond logic, but it was the right thing to do. She drove home in silence, trying not to think about how she was going to show up tomorrow morning with barely any sleep, soaked boots, and a dried-out excuse for why she was late. Carl Drayton didn't tolerate lateness, and he tolerated her even less. She just needed to get through tomorrow's shift, but tomorrow had other plans. When she woke up, sunlight was barely creeping through the holes in her curtains. She'd overslept by 40 minutes. Her heart leapt into her throat as she scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over her laundry pile. Her roof had leaked again in the night, leaving a small puddle just by the bathroom door. She grabbed the quickest clothes she could find, wrung out her sneakers with her hands, and sprinted down the stairs to her car. She arrived at the diner 15 minutes late. The parking lot was half full already. She could see customers inside through the windows, forks clinking, coffee steaming, people chatting as if their lives were perfect and simple. Maya pushed the door open, trying to slip in quietly. Carl Drayton was waiting for her. He stood near the entrance, arms crossed tightly, wearing that permanent sneer that made her stomach knot. He was in his 40s, built like a block of cement, with a face that looked carved out of impatience. "Maya," he said loudly, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "So kind of you to finally show up." She swallowed hard. "Carl, I'm sorry, No." He held up a hand. "Not another excuse. You think you can just stroll in whenever you feel like it? You think this place runs on magic? I had a situation last night. There was a man stranded in the storm." "Save it," he scoffed, shaking his head dramatically for the audience he'd gathered. "You're always full of stories. Always something?" Customers paused mid-bite. A few glanced her way with pity. Jai, the young dishwasher who'd always been quietly supportive of her, stood frozen near the swinging kitchen door. Carl stepped closer. "You know what? I'm done with this. You're fired." The room fell silent. Maya blinked, stunned. "Carl, please. I was helping someone. I'm not lying. I'm not." "Take your stuff," he said, pointing toward the back room. "You're done here, permanently." Her eyes stung. She bit the inside of her cheek to keep her voice from trembling. "Carl, I need this job. You should have thought of that before showing up late again." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she felt her throat tightening, her breath catching, not from anger, but from humiliation. In front of customers, in front of coworkers, in front of strangers who would forget this the moment they walked out, but who would remember enough to gossip about it. She turned away before she could cry and walked toward the back room, her footsteps echoing. As she stuffed her belongings into her bag, her apron, her battered notepad, the marker she always used to draw smiley faces on kids' receipts, she swallowed the ache rising inside her. She didn't want to break down here. Not in front of Carl. Not in front of anyone. She walked out, head down, ignoring the stares. She didn't see the elderly man sitting quietly in the corner booth, watching everything. Leonard Hale's eyes narrowed with a mix of disappointment and something sharper, something like resolve. When Maya pushed open the diner door and stepped into the morning air with her life unraveling behind her, Leonard slowly rose from his seat. He had unfinished business. Leonard stepped out of the diner and into the cool morning air just as Maya reached her car. She was bent over the door, shoulders trembling, breath coming out uneven. He could see her trying to hide it, trying to swallow every piece of pain before it reached the surface. She wiped her face roughly with her sleeve, like she hated the idea of crying over someone like Carl Drayton. "Maya?" Leonard's voice was soft, but carried enough weight to make her stiffen. She turned, startled, eyes red but defiant. "Mr. Hale, what are you doing here?" He lifted the coat she'd given him. It was dry now, neatly folded over his arm. "I came to return this, but..." I also saw what happened in there. Maya's jaw clenched, and she looked away. It's fine, she muttered. It was going to happen. Eventually. No, Leonard said firmly. It isn't fine. That man humiliated you. You did a good deed last night, and you were punished for it. She shrugged, exhausted. Life works like that sometimes. He shook his head slowly. Not if I can help it. Maya blinked, taken aback. What do you mean? Leonard didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her. The way her hands shook slightly, the way her breath hitched every few seconds as she tried to stay composed, the way she looked both tired and fiercely determined not to fall apart in front of anyone else. Let me take you to breakfast, he said gently. A real breakfast, not the cheap staff meal they gave you in there. She hesitated. Her stomach twisted with embarrassment, with fear, with the sickening feeling of not knowing how she would pay rent next month. But there was something about his expression, steady, warm, grateful, that made her nod. Okay, she whispered. Just not here. He smiled. Of course, I know a quieter place. They drove to a small cafe several blocks down. It was warm, lively, filled with the smell of cinnamon and fresh bread. Maya sank into the booth seat and finally let herself breathe. For the first 10 minutes, neither of them said anything. She sipped water. He watched her hands slowly stop shaking. When the waiter walked away with their order, Leonard intertwined his fingers on the table, studying her as though he had made up his mind about something. I haven't told you the whole truth, Maya. She frowned. About what? Last night, he said quietly. Why I was on that road. Why my car stopped. Why I was alone in a storm at my age. Her heartbeat quickened, but not with fear. More like curiosity, edged with an intuition that whatever he was about to say mattered. I didn't break down by accident, he continued. Someone tampered with my car. Maya stiffened. What? Why? Who would? Someone who wants something from me, Leonard whispered, leaning closer. Or rather, from what I have. She studied him carefully. He wasn't trembling now. He wasn't confused. His eyes were sharp, steady, resolute. Entirely different from the frail man she found on the road. What do you have? She asked slowly. Leonard took a breath, as if deciding whether to trust her fully. I don't have family, he began. No children, no relatives left that I would ever give anything to. But I do have wealth. More than I ever needed. More than I ever wanted. Maya blinked, surprised. You're wealthy? Very, he said simply. Old investments. Land. A business I sold decades ago. But none of that has ever mattered to me. His gaze softened. What matters is how people treat each other. And last night, you saved me. Her cheeks warmed. I just did what anyone would. No, he interrupted. Not anyone. You stopped in. A storm. You gave me warmth. Your coat. Your time. You stood by me even though you were exhausted. That act, it revealed who you are. And today, when I watched that man shame you for showing compassion, he shook his head. It made something very clear. Maya's chest tightened. What? You're the kind of person I've been looking for. A quiet beat passed before she responded. Looking for? Why? Leonard inhaled deeply. Because someone wants me gone before I decide who my estate will go to. Her breath caught. Gone? As in, someone wants to hurt you? Yes, he said. And last night, I believe they tried. Maya stared at him, stunned. Mr. Hale, you need to go to the police. He sighed. I have. Several times. But money attracts people who know how to work around the law. And I can't trust just anyone. His eyes locked on hers. But I trust you. Her throat tightened. She hadn't heard those words in years. Not from someone who meant them. Why? She whispered. Because you helped a stranger with nothing to gain, he said. Because you showed compassion in a world where most people rush past pain, and because I can see when someone has a good heart. She looked down at her hands, unsure what to say. Then Leonard leaned back, watching her carefully. Maya, I want to offer you something. She swallowed. What? A job, he said. A real one. Safe, stable, and with dignity. Not working under a tyrant like that, Carl. Working with me. Her mind raced. Doing what? Helping me manage my estate, my affairs, my day-to-day life. I'm not as strong as I once was. I need help from someone I trust. Maya blinked. But why me? Because you're honest, he said. Because you stood by me with nothing to gain. Because you deserve a chance at a life better than the one that man tried to crush. Tears stung her eyes unexpectedly, and she blinked them back hard, embarrassed to cry in public. Mr. Hale, I don't know anything about managing estates. You'll learn, he said warmly, and I'll pay you generously. Her heart thudded. Hope, real hope, stirred. But it mingled with something else. Fear. Fear that this was too sudden. Fear that taking help might come with consequences. Fear that whoever tampered with his car might come for him again. Is it dangerous? She asked quietly. Leonard exhaled. Only if you walk away. Her eyebrows drew together. What do you mean? If someone is trying to eliminate me, he said slowly, they won't want me close to anyone new, especially someone who might protect me. Maya's breath froze. So, he continued, whether you accept or not, they will know I met you. They will know you helped me. They will see you as someone who might interfere. She felt a cold ripple down her spine. Why would they think I'd interfere? Because, Leonard said, you already did. Maya stared at him. A moment passed where the air between them tightened, thickened, sharpened. Her thoughts spun. Mr. Hale, are you saying? Yes, he whispered. You're involved now, Maya. And I'm sorry for that. Truly. But there's a way to stay safe. What way? Stay with me, he said. Accept the job. Let me protect you while you protect me. Because if you walk away, you'll be alone again. And that's exactly what they want. Her pulse hammered. She felt the cafe walls closing in, the voices blurring around her, the air thinning just slightly. Who is they? She whispered. But Leonard didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because someone suddenly appeared beside their table. A man. Tall. Dark jacket. No expression. He placed one hand on the table as if he had every right to be there. Mr. Hale, the man said calmly. You were supposed to call when you left the diner. Leonard stiffened. Maya's stomach dropped. The man's eyes flicked to her, slowly, calculatingly, before he gave a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. And who's this? Leonard forced a casual tone. She's a friend. The man's jaw ticked. A friend, right. He continued staring at Maya, and something in his gaze made her skin crawl. An awareness. A threat wrapped in a polite expression. Well, the man said softly. Mr. Hale, you shouldn't wander off. You know that. Leonard straightened, his voice cool. I'm not a prisoner. The man smiled. Of course not. You just need supervision. Maya's breath hitched. The man turned his attention to her again. You should be careful who you spend time with, he murmured, eyes sharp. Some people bring trouble without meaning to. A chill shot through Maya. Leonard spoke quickly. Maya, don't listen to him. I didn't ask you, the man interrupted softly. Maya swallowed hard. Something inside Leonard shifted, fear mixed with fury. Come, the man said, touching Leonard's shoulder. We need to talk. Leonard pulled back, but the man's grip tightened. Maya felt something rising in her, anger, protectiveness, fear, adrenaline all tangled together. "Hey," she said, voice trembling but steady enough. "He doesn't want to go with you." The man slowly turned his head toward her. He smiled again. "Yes," he murmured. "I think he does." And then he guided Leonard out of the booth. Not forcefully, not aggressively, but with confidence. As if he owned him. As if Leonard's life, and now Maya's, was already in his hands. Maya's instincts screamed at her to run after them, to shove the man's hand off Leonard's shoulder, to demand answers. But her body stayed frozen in the booth. The cafe muted around her, her heartbeat pounding too loudly in her ears for her to hear anything else. She watched Leonard disappear through the front door with the stranger guiding him like a shadow that had finally stepped into flesh. The door closed behind them, and Maya felt something sharp twist in her gut. She forced herself out of the booth and hurried outside, scanning the street. Rain had stopped hours ago, sunlight now cutting across the pavement, but the storm inside her hadn't eased. Across the road, the man was helping Leonard into a sleek black car. No markings, no dents. Clean enough to look expensive, but plain enough to look unremarkable. A car built for discretion. Leonard looked over his shoulder, searching, and when he found her across the distance, his expression flickered with something. Fear, apology, warning, all tangled into one. His lips moved, forming a silent message she couldn't fully read. Then the man closed the car door and walked around to the driver's side. Maya started toward them, but a horn blared as a delivery truck sped past, forcing her to freeze at the curb. By the time the truck passed, the black car was already pulling away. "Leonard!" she shouted, voice cracking. But the car didn't slow, didn't signal, didn't hesitate. It turned the corner and vanished. Maya's breath shook. She ran a shaky hand through her hair and stared at the empty street. Something inside her pulsed, a mix of dread and a strange, growing anger. She wasn't supposed to get involved. She wasn't supposed to care beyond last night. But Leonard had pulled her into something she didn't understand, and that man, whoever he was, had made it clear she'd stepped into a shadow she couldn't easily step back out of. She stood there for almost a minute before she forced herself to move. Her phone buzzed. For a moment, her chest tightened. Leonard? But the screen showed Jai, the dishwasher from the diner. She answered. "Hey." "Maya," he whispered. His voice was shaky. "Are you home? You safe?" Her eyebrows pulled together. "Safe? Why?" Jai exhaled quickly. "Carl's mad, like, really mad. I've never seen him like that. He's been storming around the kitchen ever since you left. Said someone from corporate called him." She stared into the empty street. "Corporate? Why would corporate—" "He thinks you snitched on him," Jai whispered. "But the crazy thing is, nobody called you, nobody asked. They just showed up out of nowhere, like they wanted something." Maya felt a cold ripple down her spine. "What did they want?" she asked softly. "Information," Jai said. "They asked if Carl had been talking about some old guy." He swallowed. "An older man you brought in from the storm." Maya felt her pulse stutter. "Do you know who they were?" she asked. "No uniforms," Jai whispered. "No badges. Just men in suits. Sharp. Quiet. Like they weren't supposed to be noticed." Maya closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. "Jai, listen to me. If they come back, if they ask about me—" "I didn't tell them anything," he said quickly. "I won't. Just be careful, okay?" She swallowed. "I will." She ended the call and stood there for a moment, knowing the situation had just shifted into something much darker than she expected. She went home. Her small apartment felt even smaller than usual. The leaky roof, the water-stained walls, the furniture she'd collected from curbside giveaways. They all seemed to constrict around her as she paced the living room. She replayed the morning in her mind. The diner, Leonard's words, the stranger in the cafe, the car driving away. She needed answers. And part of her whispered that maybe she should walk away, forget him, forget the job offer, forget the danger. She'd survived without help her whole life. She could disappear into another city, start fresh, work another diner job, keep her head down. But another part of her, the part that made her shield strangers from storms, clawed hard against that idea. Leonard had been scared, and he had trusted her. She sank onto the couch, staring at the blank wall. She needed more information. Something about Leonard, something about whoever was after him. Something about... A knock at the door made her jump. She froze. 3 slow knocks. Not Carl. He would bang with both fists. Not Jai. He would call her name. Her breathing grew shallow as she crept toward the door. When she looked through the peephole, her entire body tightened. 2 men, dark suits, expressionless. The same style as the man from the cafe. She stepped back so quickly her shoe scuffed the floor. They knocked again, harder this time. "Maya Ellison," one of them called calmly. "We need a moment." Her heart pounded against her ribs. She backed away silently, moving toward the kitchen, toward the back door. Another knock. This one softer, almost polite. "Maya," the voice repeated. "We know you're home." She bit the inside of her cheek so hard she tasted blood. No. If she answered, she wouldn't be walking back into her apartment alone. If she opened the door, she might not walk back inside at all. She grabbed her keys with trembling fingers, slipped out the back door as quietly as she could, and eased down the metal staircase. She heard footsteps above her, fast, heavy, searching. Her breath hitched. She kept moving. When she reached the parking lot behind the building, she didn't go to her car. If they were watching the front, they were watching everything. Instead, she ducked behind the trash enclosure, waited until she heard the men splitting up, one heading down the stairs, one circling the building. Then she sprinted toward the alley and disappeared into the next street. She didn't stop until her lungs burned. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She stared at the screen. Her hands shook. She let it ring. It buzzed again 30 seconds later. Same number. She didn't pick up. She kept walking, head down, heart pounding, slipping through the neighborhood corners and side streets until she reached a busier avenue. She forced herself inside a small convenience store and lingered near the back aisle until she felt her heartbeat calm. Her phone buzzed a 3rd time. This time, the number was different. She almost ignored it until she saw the name attached. Leonard. Her chest tightened. She answered with a shaking breath. "Mr. Hale, are you okay?" A strained, trembling voice filled her ear. "Maya, listen to me very carefully." She pressed her back against a shelf of cereal boxes. "Where are you? What's happening?" I don't have much time," Leonard whispered. His breathing was ragged, as if he were struggling to speak and hide at the same time. "They took me somewhere. I don't know where. They think they can force me to sign something." Maya's throat tightened. "Sign what?" "My estate," he whispered. "Everything." Her pulse raced. "But why? Who are they?" Leonard exhaled shakily. "A man named Rowan Hart. He used to be my business partner. Decades ago. He disappeared after he stole money from the company. I never saw him again until last year. He wants everything now. My land, my savings, my accounts, all of it. He thinks I'm weak enough to give it to him." He swallowed. "But he wants me to die quietly afterward, and he wants anyone near me to stay silent." Maya's breath caught. "So that man at the cafe? One of Rowan's people," Leonard whispered. "He's not the only one. Maya, please, don't come after me. Don't get involved. I don't want your life in danger because of mine. Her voice trembled. But you're in danger right now. I can't just. You have to, he said, voice breaking. Promise me you'll stay away. Promise me you'll forget what I said. She shook her head fiercely even though he couldn't see her. No, I won't. I'm not leaving you. Maya, Leonard whispered, voice fading. Please. I need you to. She heard the phone rustle violently. Then a new voice, deeper and colder, spoke into her ear. Well, the voice said softly, look who we have here. Maya's hand shook so violently the phone nearly slipped from her fingers. The man chuckled, a low, slow sound. You must be Maya. Her blood turned to ice. You've been very curious, he continued, and very close to something that does not belong to you. She swallowed hard. Where is he? What did you do to him? Leonard is fine, the man said casually. For now. But you need to stop asking questions. Her breath caught. If you hurt him, that depends entirely on you, he said, and on whether you stay quiet. Maya's fingers curled tightly around the phone. I'm not afraid of you, she lied. The man laughed softly. Little girl, you should be. The line went dead. Maya stood there in the store aisle, trembling so hard she had to grip the shelf to stay upright. Leonard was in danger. Rowan Hart wanted him to sign everything away, and Maya had just been warned to disappear. Or else. But she couldn't. She knew herself too well. She would never forgive herself if she walked away. She stepped out of the convenience store, pulling her hood up, blending into the afternoon crowd. She didn't know where Leonard was. She didn't know how to find Rowan Hart. She didn't know who to trust. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She wasn't going to let Leonard die alone. Not after the storm. Not after he trusted her. Not after the way he looked at her when that car pulled away. She inhaled deeply, her fear slowly hardening into resolve. Okay, she whispered to herself. If they want to fight, they about to get one. And Maya Ellison stepped back into the city ready for war. The wind hit Alana's face like a slap the moment she stepped out of the car. For a second she thought the cold would choke her, but she pushed forward, scanning the quiet street. It was too empty, too still. The kind of silence that didn't belong to an ordinary neighborhood after dark. Leo motioned for her to stay low as he shut the car door quietly behind him, his hand never leaving the grip of the gun tucked behind his jacket. Elijah stayed close, one eye on the street, the other on the house that hid the man who'd tried to destroy Alana's life. The house looked innocent, soft light glowing behind gauzy curtains, potted plants arranged neatly beside the porch, the kind of place where someone might bake cookies and watch Sunday shows. But underneath the sweetness, Alana felt rot. She felt him. The man with the calm voice, the cold logic, the one who'd marked her life long before she'd ever known his name. Her heartbeat thudded so loudly she was sure it echoed in the street. She swallowed, wiped her sweaty palms against her jeans, but the trembling wouldn't stop spreading through her fingers. Leo touched her elbow gently. Stay behind us. No matter what you hear, don't go inside until I say so. Alana nodded, but her body screamed to push through the door and end this nightmare herself. She wanted answers. She needed answers. And every second she waited only tightened the knot inside her chest. Elijah stepped first, his breath steady despite the tension. He knocked once. Sharp. Controlled. No one answered. He knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. Leo moved forward and whispered, He's in there. I can feel it. Alana's throat closed. She could feel it too. Her skin prickled, her stomach twisted, the air around her heavy with something wrong. Elijah took a quiet breath, pulled a thin tool from his pocket, and in 4 seconds the lock clicked. He pushed the door open slowly. The smell that drifted out wasn't of cookies or warmth. It was metallic. damp, like mold and copper. Alana's chest tightened. Her eyes stung. Something deep inside her recoiled. "Stay back," Leo murmured again, but his voice didn't reach her. Her feet carried her inside before she could stop them. Leo hissed her name. Elijah cursed under his breath, but Alana kept walking. Some awful familiarity, wrapped around her ribs and guided her deeper into the dim hallway. Her vision pulsed at the edges, darkening and brightening like flickering light. The house was too quiet, too orderly. She recognized the shapes of the furniture even though she had never stepped foot in this place before. Recognized the texture of the wallpaper, the pattern of the floor. She shivered violently. Leo caught up to her and gently held her wrist. "Alana, look at me." She tried, but her eyes slid past him toward the back door. "I've been here," she whispered. "I don't know how, but I've been here." Elijah's jaw shifted. "Memories or manipulation?" "Both," she breathed. Leo tightened his grip, not in control, but in grounding. "You don't do anything alone. Not anymore." A floorboard creaked from somewhere deep in the house, then another, then a slow, dragging sound, like someone moving something heavy across wood. Elijah drew his gun. "He's here." Alana's pulse skyrocketed so fast she thought she'd faint. She could hear the dragging sound clearer, the uneven pull, the grunt of effort, the scrape repeating. She forced a breath past the rising panic and whispered, "That's a chain." Leo's look sharpened instantly. Elijah moved forward in silence, steps controlled, shoulders tense. The hallway opened into a wide room filled with dim light. The first thing Alana saw was the chair, the thick rope coiled around its legs, the chain bolted into the floor beside it. And beside that, organizing tools with surgical precision, was the man himself. He looked up at them slowly, as though they'd simply interrupted him while cooking dinner. He was older than she expected. Late 40s, maybe, gray streaking the edges of his beard, eyes calm with a terrifying steadiness. He didn't flinch, didn't panic. He just stared at Alana like she was a prize he'd been expecting to unwrap. "Elena Sanders," he said softly, almost fondly. "You arrived faster than I predicted." Alana stumbled backward instinctively, hitting Leo's chest. Her heart seized in a brutal clamp. Elijah raised his gun and barked, "Hands where I can see them!" The man lifted his hands slowly, but the movement wasn't fear. It was amusement. "You brought backup. 2 of them. How predictable." "Shut up," Leo growled. Alana felt her knees wobble. Her stomach twisted so hard her breath stuttered. Something about the man's voice cracked open a door inside her head that she wasn't ready to see through. A cold shiver scraped her spine from the inside. The man tilted his head. "Still remembering things, are you?" His smile was small, chilling. "I told them your mind would fight. I told them you'd claw your way back to the truth, but no one believed me." "Don't," Alana begged, her eyes burning. "Don't say my name." He chuckled lightly. "But it's such a beautiful name." Leo steadied her with a hand at her back. "Alana, you don't have to listen to him." But the man kept talking, sliding into her mind with that voice like cold steel draped in velvet. "You came to me once, you know. Years ago. You asked me to help you forget. You begged for it, in fact." Alana's shaking worsened, her vision blurred, her chest constricted like a fist squeezing the air out of her. No, I didn't." "Your memories were drowning you," he continued, as if discussing weather. "You couldn't breathe. You cried until you passed out. And you begged me to take the pain away." "Stop talking," Leo shouted, taking a step forward. Elijah moved slightly to the side, gun trained on the man's forehead. "One more word and you won't get a chance to finish a sentence." But Alana felt her entire world folding inward, collapsing under the weight of the man's words. Something inside her cracked, the faintest memory, the shape of a room, the feeling of cold fingers on her temples, the tearing sensation behind her eyes. She gasped, pressing her hands to her face. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. That wasn't real. I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for this." The man smiled. People always say that when they regret their choices. The air in the room thickened. Leo's fury vibrated like a storm ready to break. He stepped between Alana and the man, blocking her view, shielding her with his whole body. His voice was low, lethal. "You're done." Elijah tensed, waiting for the man to make one wrong move. But the man only sighed, almost disappointed. "You think you're here to save her." Leo's jaw clenched. The man's calm gaze flicked toward Alana. "But she's the one who brought you here." The room froze. The words slammed into her chest like physical blows. Leo turned, his eyes searching hers. Not accusing, confused. "Alana?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her mind splintered into 100 flickering images she couldn't piece together. Flashlights, a hallway, a cold table, a contract, a signature, a promise whispered through tears. She staggered backward, hitting the wall. The room tilted. Elijah cursed bitterly under his breath. Leo looked like he wanted to tear the man apart with his bare hands. The man watched her unraveling with a strange, serene patience. "You'll remember soon enough." Something inside Alana snapped. She screamed, the sound raw and shaking, the pressure of collapsing memories turning her voice into something animal. Leo reached for her, but at that exact moment the man lunged toward the table, not for a weapon, but for a trigger. A small metallic click echoed like a gunshot. Elijah shouted, "Move!" A blinding flash burst from under the floor. The world exploded. The room tore sideways. Alana's body lifted off the ground as heat punched through the air. And then, silence. Heavy. Smothering. Her ears rang violently, drowning out everything except her own gasping breath. She blinked through smoke, coughing, reaching blindly for Leo, for Elijah, anyone. The room was half collapsed, flames licking the edges of broken wood, dust choking the air. "Leo!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. "Elijah!" She crawled across the debris, lungs burning, throat raw. She felt splintered wood slicing her palms, shattered glass digging into her knees. "Leo!" A groan answered her from somewhere under the collapsed wall. She lunged toward the sound, but before she could reach him, a hand grabbed her ankle. Cold, steady, uninjured. She twisted around, eyes wide with horror. The man was standing, unharmed, covered in dust, but smiling faintly. "You survived," he murmured. "Good. We're not finished yet." Alana's heart stopped, because he wasn't dragging her away. He was dragging her toward something she couldn't see, something burning behind the smoke, something she knew, deep in her bones, was about to rip the rest of her life apart. Alana kicked, clawed, twisted, anything to break free. But the man's grip tightened like steel around her ankle. His fingers were ice cold, impossibly steady, as if the explosion hadn't touched him at all. Smoke curled around them, thick and suffocating, flames crackling along the splintered debris behind his silhouette. "Let go of me!" she screamed, her voice cracking against the burning air. He didn't loosen his grip. "You're panicking," he said calmly, almost clinically. "You always panic when the truth gets close." "I don't care about your truth," she shouted, reaching for anything, metal, wood, glass, to strike him with. Her hand closed around a jagged shard of wood. She swung, slashing across his wrist. He hissed sharply and released her. Alana scrambled backward on her hands and knees, coughing, the smoke clawing at her lungs. Her back hit a toppled bookshelf. She pushed herself up, frantic eyes scanning the wreckage. "Leo!" she cried, voice trembling. "Elijah!" A faint sound answered her. A groan, buried somewhere under broken beams and scorched drywall. Alana's heart lurched. She leapt over debris, ignoring the burn in her legs, ignoring the sting of glass embedded in her skin. She tore through rubble with shaking hands, pulling aside wood, tile, anything she could lift. Then she saw him. Leo was pinned under a collapsed support beam, blood streaking down one side of his face. His eyes were half open, dazed, but alive. Alana. His voice was weak, rough. You okay? A sob tore out of her. I'm fine. Just hold on, okay? Don't move. He gave a faint, pained smirk. Doesn't look like I have many options. She braced both hands against the beam. It didn't budge. She pushed harder, teeth clenched, muscles screaming. Nothing. Damn it, she whispered, tears burning down her soot-covered cheeks. I'm not leaving you here. I'm not. Leo lifted a shaky hand and brushed her wrist. Alana. Focus. Find Elijah. He's closer to the blast than I was. No, she choked, shaking her head violently. I'm not leaving you. We do everything together. You promised me that. Leo's expression twisted. Pain, fear, love tangled into one. I did. And I meant it. But you need to... A soft crunch of footsteps cut him off. Alana froze. She turned slowly. The man stood at the edge of the shattered room, the dying flames casting him in a flickering orange glow. Dust coated his hair, his clothes, but his eyes, they were sharp, focused entirely on her. You're interfering, he said, as if scolding a child. This part isn't for them. It's for you. She stepped in front of Leo instinctively. Her whole body shook, but her stance was firm. You come any closer, she said, voice trembling but strong. And I swear to God I'll kill you. He smiled, a small, maddening curve of his lips. You've said those words before. Alana's throat tightened. I don't know what you think you remember. I don't remember, he interrupted softly. I recorded it. Her blood turned to ice. He took a slow step forward. You sat in that very chair. He nodded toward the half-burned wooden frame in the corner. And you told me you couldn't live with all the blood on your hands. Your words, not mine. Alana's breath stopped. Leo stirred behind her. Alana, ignore him. But she couldn't. The room felt like it was spinning. Her head pulsed with shadows, blurry flashes of memories she didn't recognize but felt in her bones. The man continued, voice low, hypnotic. You looked me in the eyes and begged for peace, begged for silence, begged for a clean slate. No, she whispered, barely able to form the word. That can't be right. I wasn't... You were crying so hard you could barely breathe, he said, his tone maddeningly gentle. You said you'd do anything to make it stop. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Stop talking. And when I told you the price, he murmured, stepping closer, you paid it without hesitation. Stop! She screamed, the word ripping out of her as panic seized her chest. The man paused, or maybe savored her reaction. His expression never shifted from that unsettling calm. Leo's hand brushed her ankle. Alana, look at me. She kneeled, beside him, trying to focus, but her eyes were full of tears that refused to fall. Leo cupped her cheek with his uninjured hand, forcing her gaze onto his. He's lying, Leo whispered. He's twisting something, or he's making it up. Don't let him get into your head. But something inside Alana wouldn't sit still. Something felt familiar, too familiar. Why do these places look like memories? She whispered, barely audible. Why do I feel like I knew this layout before we even came inside? Her breath hitched. Why do I know the sound of his voice? Leo winced, pain shooting through him. Because trauma plays tricks, and he's manipulating what you're remembering. You don't know the truth yet, and you won't find it with him. Behind them, Elijah stirred. Alana spun around so fast her injured knee buckled. "Elijah!" she shouted, scrambling toward him. He was half buried under a collapsed table, coughing violently, one arm clutched against his ribs. His face was streaked with blood and grit, but he was conscious. "Damn," he groaned, trying to sit up. "My ribs. Think they're cracked." He blinked through smoke. Where is he?" Before Alana could answer, the man stepped closer. Elijah tried to raise his gun but couldn't lift his arm high enough. The man's eyes flicked to the weapon. "If you shoot, the house will come down. The foundation's already compromised." Elijah's jaw locked. "I'll risk it." But his voice showed the truth. He wasn't physically capable right now. The man folded his hands behind his back like he was politely observing artwork. "Your devotion to her is admirable, but unnecessary." Alana stepped in front of Elijah, too, positioning herself between both men she cared about and the monster who'd tried to own her mind. He raised a brow. "Protecting both of them? How generous." "What do you want from me?" she finally demanded. Her voice cracked through the smoke, raw and desperate. "If you wanted me dead, you could have done it years ago. If you wanted them dead, you could have let them burn. So what is this? What are you trying to do?" He stared at her with an expression she couldn't read, something between fascination and disappointment. "You want the truth," he said simply, "but the truth isn't told, it's remembered." "I don't want your mind games," she spat. He lifted a finger. "And yet, they're working. You feel it, don't you? The edges, the pieces slipping back into place." Alana's nails dug into her palms, because he was right. She hated it, hated him for it. But the edges were there, the flashes, the glimpse of a cold room, a contract of some kind, and a voice, maybe hers, sobbing. Leo saw the panic flooding her eyes and forced himself to sit up slightly, groaning. "Alana," he rasped, "you listen to me. I don't care what he says happened. You are not the same woman now. You hear me?" Her lips trembled. Elijah coughed, spitting blood. "We're your people, not him." The man tilted his head, mildly annoyed. "You're confusing present connections with past agreements." Alana snapped. "Enough!" Her scream echoed through the collapsing house. Her chest heaved, the smoke burning her throat raw. She wiped her tears harshly, smearing soot across her face, and rose to her full height, even though her legs trembled beneath her. "You want me to remember?" she said, voice shaking with fury. "Fine. Then tell me what you did to me." He stepped forward slowly until he stood inches away from her. "I didn't do anything to you," he whispered. "You're lying." He shook his head. "I fulfilled your request." Her stomach dropped. "My request?" He nodded once. "Your mind was fracturing, and you gave me permission to remove the part of your past that was killing you." She felt cold, then hot, then dizzy. "What past?" she whispered, barely audible. He smiled faintly. "The part," he said softly, "where you killed a man." Alana's breath stopped completely. Her vision blurred. Leo froze. Elijah's eyes widened despite the pain. The entire world went frighteningly still. And in Alana's mind, for the first time, something clicked. A memory, sharp as broken glass, slipped through the cracks of her consciousness. A hallway. A scream. A warm spray of blood across her hands. Her own voice sobbing, "Please, take it away." Alana staggered backward, hitting the half-collapsed wall behind her. The room blurred, her chest constricted, and a low ringing filled her ears. "No," she whispered. "No. No, no." The man watched her unravel again, but this time he didn't smile. "Now," he murmured. "You're ready." Ready for what? Alana didn't get to ask, because at that exact moment, the flames reached the gas line. A violent roar surged through the house. Elijah screamed her name. Leo reached toward her with everything he had. And the world exploded again. The second explosion wasn't as large as the first, but it was close, loud enough to split the air, violent enough to rip the breath from Alana's lungs, bright enough to swallow every thought except survive. She flew backward, weightless for a split second, then slammed into something hard. Maybe the remains of a cabinet, maybe a wall. The impact jolted her entire body, knocking the air out of her. A high-pitched ringing filled her ears. The world went white, then gray, then black around the edges. When her vision steadied, she was on her side in a pile of debris, coughing violently as smoke clawed deep into her chest. Flames licked at the shattered walls. The ceiling groaned like it was begging to collapse. "Elijah!" she choked out, dragging herself forward on shaking elbows. "Leo!" A cough answered her from somewhere to her right. Weak, but real. "Alana." Leo's voice rasped, raw with pain. She turned toward him. He was half buried again, this time under a thick piece of paneling, but the beam that had pinned his legs earlier had shifted enough for him to move. Elijah was slumped a few feet behind him, chest heaving rapidly, and the man, the stranger who knew too much, was nowhere. Alana's heart pounded once, twice, a third time. Then she felt it, that cold prickle on the back of her neck. She turned. He stood behind her, perfectly still, not burned, not dazed, not struggling for breath like the rest of them. His clothes were streaked with ash, but his posture hadn't shifted an inch since before the blast. His eyes were steady, watching her with an almost clinical fascination. "You're very difficult to kill," he said softly. "Even now." Alana pushed herself up onto her knees, head spinning, balance tilting. Why are you doing this?" she gasped. "If you want me to remember, why are you trying to destroy everything around me?" "I'm not trying to destroy anything," he replied calmly. "I'm trying to remove obstacles." Her pulse spiked. "Obstacles?" she repeated, barely able to breathe. "You mean them?" His silence was an answer. Alana's body shook with something deeper than fear. Rage, thick and boiling, rising like a storm she didn't recognize. She got to her feet unsteadily, swaying but refusing to fall. "You don't get to call them obstacles," she snapped, voice cracking. "They're my people. They're my life." The man tilted his head slightly. "Are they? Or are they replacements?" Alana's jaw clenched. "What does that even mean?" He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "The guilt that broke you. It wasn't from killing a stranger. It was from killing someone you loved." Her knees buckled. Leo shouted her name, struggling against the debris pinning him. Elijah tried to stand but collapsed again, coughing blood. Alana's breath rattled in her chest. She backed away from the man as the walls flickered orange around them. "You're lying," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're trying to break me." "I already did," he replied simply. "You're just now remembering the pieces." Another memory ripped through her mind without warning. A room, a heated argument, a hand reaching for her, a flash of panic, her own scream, and then blood. Alana stumbled backward until her spine hit a collapsing section of wall. Splinters scraped her arms, but she barely felt them. Her vision blurred again, edges trembling. Leo strained his voice. "Alana, look at me." She couldn't. The memory dug deeper. The man took another step. "Your mind fractured because you couldn't live with what you'd done. You begged me to take that night away, to take everything away." Her chest seized. "Stop," she pleaded. "You begged." He repeated, voice steady and dark. "And I agreed. But removing a trauma doesn't erase its nature. It only buries it. And the more you build on top of it, new friends, new bonds, new love, the more unstable the foundation becomes. Her heartbeat wasn't just fast, it was erratic, painful. "You're lying," she said again, though her voice wasn't convinced. "You're—" "He's manipulating you," Leo shouted. The stranger turned slightly, only his eyes shifting. "And you think you're helping her? You're the reason she's unraveling faster. She built too much meaning around you." Leo's face hardened. "You don't know anything about her." "I know everything about her," the man said coolly. "I rebuilt her. From the inside out." Alana's stomach dropped so violently she nearly vomited. Then Elijah, bleeding and barely conscious, raised his voice in a low growl. "You don't own her." The man looked at him with mild amusement. "I don't need to. She belongs to her past." Alana shook her head frantically. "No. No. I belong to myself." "That's not how trauma works," he said. "But it can be, if you accept the truth. Fully." "I don't even know the truth," she cried. "You will," he replied. "Right now." He reached inside his coat. Alana tensed, bracing for a weapon. He pulled out a phone. He tapped the screen once and a recording began to play. A voice. Her voice. Sobbing. Deep, gut-wrenching sobs that sounded like her heart was breaking. Then words, barely audible through her own crying. "Take it away. Please. Take it away. I don't want to live with it. I can't. I can't anymore." Alana froze completely. Her blood went still. Her breath stopped. Her mind fractured all over again. Leo's face crumpled in horror. Elijah closed his eyes like the sound physically hurt him. The man stopped the recording. "You asked for this. Everything I've done is because you begged for it." "No," she whispered, falling to her knees. "No." Because she remembered the desperation in that voice, the pain, the terror. And it was her. The memory left no room to deny it. She had begged someone to erase a night, a moment, a death. But whose? "What did I do?" she whispered, her voice shaking violently. "Who did I kill?" The man stepped closer, kneeling in front of her like he was comforting a wounded child. But his eyes were ice. "You killed your sister," Alana screamed. Not a word. Not a cry. A scream that tore from the deepest, darkest part of her soul. Leo flinched, looking broken. Elijah's shoulders sagged as the truth shredded her. Her chest seized, her vision blurred. Her head felt like it was splitting in two. "No," she sobbed. "No, I would never. I couldn't. I loved her." "Yes," the man said softly. "And you killed her." Her body collapsed inward. She could barely breathe. "By accident," he added in a near whisper, "but your mind didn't care. It only cared that it was your hands." Alana's sobs grew violent. He stood slowly. "Now you understand why you begged for the erasure." "No," she whispered, clutching her head. "No." "And now," he said, stepping back into the shadows flickering with flame, "you must decide what you want to remember next." An enormous crack split the ceiling. The beams above groaned. The house began to settle, a second away from total collapse. Elijah shouted, "We have to move now." Leo reached toward her. "Alana, come on." But Alana couldn't move. Her body refused. Her mind was a whirlwind of guilt, agony, fragments returning too fast. Leo yelled again, desperation raw in his voice. "Alana, look at me." She forced her eyes toward him. His expression, bloodied, terrified but filled with love, was the only thing anchoring her to the present moment. "You're not that person anymore," he whispered fiercely. "Whatever happened, whatever you did, you are not her now. You hear me? You're not." Elijah nodded, bracing himself against a broken post. "You can remember and survive. You don't have to choose one." The man watched them silently, almost analytically. Alana closed her eyes. One breath. Two. 3. Then she opened them, and something inside her had shifted. Not healed, not forgiven, but awakened. She pushed herself up, body trembling. The man raised an eyebrow. You choose acceptance? No, she said quietly. He blinked. Then what? She met his eyes. Steady, fierce, shaking but determined. I choose myself. The ceiling gave one final groan, and the entire house collapsed. Alana ran. Elijah grabbed her arm. Leo dragged himself with his remaining strength. All three of them dove as the floor caved behind them, the roof finally giving way in a violent roar of splintering wood and fire. Outside, they hit the wet grass hard, rolling through mud and debris. The night sky poured rain over them, hissing as it hit the flames, swallowing the house. They lay there, coughing, shaking, alive, barely. The house burned completely, collapsing inward. The man was nowhere. He had vanished. No footprints in the mud, no silhouette in the flame, no sign he had ever been trapped inside. Leo wheezed. He's gone. Elijah rolled onto his back, breathing hard. No, he's not the type to die in a fire. Alana sat up slowly, rain dripping down her face, mingling with tears she couldn't stop. Thunder rumbled overhead. You okay? Elijah asked softly. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know. Leo reached for her hand. We'll figure this out. Together. She squeezed his hand weakly. Then she looked at the burning remains of the house, her past flickering in orange flames, rising in ash to the storm, above. The man had given her the truth, but the price for remembering wasn't over. Not even close. A shadow moved at the tree line. Rain shifted. A chill crawled up her spine. The man was watching. Waiting. Because the final piece of her past still hadn't surfaced. And when it did, he would come back for her. Alana wiped her face with a shaking hand and whispered to herself, to the storm, to the night. Subscribe, like the video, and pray for me, 'cause this ain't over. Not even close.